All right, everyone, we're going to get started this afternoon. Welcome again to the WellRight Wellness Webinar Series for September. As a reminder, September is focused on nutrition-related topics and overall healthy eating. Also as a reminder, this is a weekly event. It's taking place every Thursday at the same time, 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. So if you are able to, please join next week as well as the last week in September. And tell your colleagues and coworkers about it as well. We'd love for them to attend the last 2 weeks if they weren't able to make today. So just a quick couple housekeeping notes. The audio for today's call, you can listen either through your computer speakers or you can dial in separately. If you're having any trouble hearing over the web, you can change to the telephone and dial in. Just look at the audio section of your control panel and extend that section. And there's a dial-in number there. Just be sure to switch from mic and speakers to telephone. You should be able to dial right in. You will be muted during the duration of today's event, but you can submit any comments or questions that you do have also through the control panel. And that's under the questions section towards the bottom. Please enter those in at any time. We'll address them throughout. We'd love to hear what you have to say. So one final reminder is we are recording today's session as well as all four this month, and they will be available for playback shortly after today. So we're bringing back Coach Michael this week. Again, Coach Michael is WellRight's own certified wellness coach, and he's also bringing another special guest with us today. So Coach, take it away.
Thanks, Jackie. Well, welcome everybody again, and thanks for coming back. And so I have a co-host with me today, a Miss Kristen Schlens. She's new with us here to WellRight, but not new to wellness. She's really, really great. She has a lot of experience, and I just want to let her go ahead and introduce herself a little bit, and so maybe tell them about yourself a little bit.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having me. Again, my name's Kristen Schlens. I'm a regional sales manager here at WellRight, and we focus on corporate wellness. I myself have had a lifelong history of health and well-being. I'm the mother of 2 children and a proud to announce grandmother of one 1-year-old little boy. Originally, I'm from the Midwest. I live in Chicago, and most currently I'm training for the Chicago Marathon. So thank you so much for having me.
Our pleasure. Well, I thought Kristen would be a perfect co-host with me, really because she's not only worked in wellness for a long time, and she knows a lot about it, but she gives a unique perspective, kind of like an everyday perspective. And I thought her question would be really, really unique, and her contributions would be great. So thank you so much for joining us today. Our presentation today is called Veggies, Your Worst Best Friend. And so I know veggies sometimes have a negative connotation. They're those green things that kind of end up in 1/3 of your plate if you're lucky. And your mom always told you you have to eat your vegetables. But really, they are your best friend, and we're going to go over that a little bit. I hesitated a little bit when we started this slide, just because, you know, veggies, is it even a fun topic? I mean, what's there really to cover? And vegetables are incredibly powerful, and that's the message that we want to get across today. So without further ado, let's go ahead and just get started here. So this is the big picture about vegetables. Vegetables are the core of food. There's protein, there's fat, there's fish, there's you name it. There's all these subcategories of food, but vegetables are the prime. And the reason is because vegetables impact every area of your body. You could go right now to PubMed, type in vegetables, probably type in a body part, and there is some way interaction that vegetable will help you. You can type in just about every disease, and there's going to be some way that vegetables can help you. It is an amazing healing food. Not only that, but it grows everywhere, on every continent, in every state, in every country. It's easy to get. Unlike animals, you don't have to go catch it. It's just sitting there waiting for you. And they're really, really, really wonderful. The second part of that is longevity. Undeniably, vegetables are linked to longevity. There are studies that show maybe wine might. There's studies that show maybe limiting your meat consumption might increase longevity, or maybe just being active, but they pale in comparison to studies linking vegetables to longevity. Every culture, like we talked about last week if you tuned in, all the longest living cultures that are living 100 plus years, the majority of their diet is plant-based. Irrefutable science. So that's the second part of it. And then the third part of it is, well, it's unlimited. Eat as much as you want. Vegetables are fantastic. It's really hard to overdo vegetables. I've health coached a long time, and I've worked in obesity clinics. And I'll tell you this, never once did I see someone come in who was obese who said, you know what, I overdid it on vegetables my whole life, and now I'm here because I ate way too much kale. Never once have I heard that. Vegetables are great. So that's sort of our big picture of why we should eat vegetables. And, you know, I think they're great. And actually, Kristen and I had like some interesting conversations. She had a little bit of a unique perspective on vegetables and just her own journey trying to include them. Maybe tell them a little bit about that.
Well, you know, I think in this day and age or economy, just getting a family together to cook at home and eat together is a challenge that we all face. We're all lacking time due to our jobs, due to our extracurricular activities, which tends to lead to people eating in a thoughtless and disconnected way, in which the priority then becomes convenience and speed. So for me, in my professional life and my adult life, being 8 years married and 17 years as a single mom and a business professional, I wanted to find balance. And for me, it was really through that family time around the dinner table or in the kitchen preparing. And one of the things about vegetables and fruits and produce in general was how colorful were our plates. And being able to have my family at the end of a busy day was very rewarding for us to come together and prepare a meal together. And being able to educate them on nutrition, how they're eating, and the more colorful their plate, the better the outcome was going to be, the better they were going to feel, the more excited they were going to be when they ate. So for me, that was one of the biggest takeaways throughout the last few decades.
And I totally get that too, because a lot of American plates, let's just say you have chicken, and then you have mashed potatoes, so you have your grain, and then maybe you have a second grain, which is really common, so a bread. You basically have a sea of beige. You know, that's basically your plate. There's just no color there. So that's a really actually good point that, you know, just when you're looking at your plate, and actually the slide, it kind of symbolizes that a little bit. But, you know, you definitely want more color, and vegetables allow you to do that. So now we're going to transition into a little bit of like a myth truth here, because a lot of sort of pre-held knowledge or just things that people have learned, they've gotten it from their parents or their grandparents or popular media. They have a lot of myths concerning vegetables, and so we want to go over those a little bit. The first being that fresh vegetables are always better than frozen or canned. And actually, that's not always true. So here's the deal. You know, one of the most common things that people say is, well, fresh vegetables are fresh because it retains all the nutrients. It came straight from the earth, and when it goes to the grocery store, I'm going to get all of the nutrients. Whereas canned, it's just been sitting there. Frozen, who knows how far it's traveled. Well, canned and frozen are both stored at the peak of ripeness. So that's one thing that's kind of interesting. And especially canned, you have to think about this because it actually traps oxygen. So the vegetables can't oxidize very, very well. And that's an important part. So fresh vegetables aren't always better, and we should look at that. Actually, UC Berkeley did a really, really interesting study on this, and they compared it, like molecularly they compared it. And what came out was, you know what, quality frozen, canned, and vegetables, canned, frozen, or fresh, they're all about the same. There wasn't a huge difference. So that kind of surprised me, actually, when I was looking at it. Jackie, did you?
Actually, I have a question about being frozen and canned, more so the canned.
Yeah.
I have always heard, you know, steer away from canned vegetables. You know, always go fresh, obviously, if you can, but canned due to sodium levels. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, well, you know, in the last 10 years, well, let's just say 20 years, the hypertension scare in America, food manufacturers are really trying to put as many positive claims they can in their labels. And one thing that's happened as a byproduct is sodium levels have actually dropped quite a lot. So if you go to your local grocery store now and you look at sodium levels within canned vegetables, they're pretty low. Really, the anti-can group right now, their biggest argument is what the can's actually made of. Aluminum, BPA, what's leaching into the vegetables, and even that's not overly convincing right now. So canned seems like a great alternative. So yeah, we're gonna say false. We're gonna say that that's myth and it's busted. On to the next one. Raw vegetables are always healthier. I'm gonna tell you this, that through my nutrition studies, I can't tell you how many times professors tell me, yeah, raw vegetables are healthier, and I would say, well, why? Well, because they digest completely. Okay. Is there any other research, or is that just kind of off the cuff? And when you really dive into it, you know, there's a lot more to the story. So one of the things that's kind of interesting about it is that cooked vegetables unlock a lot of nutrients. So like when you go to make pasta and you saute your tomatoes, it actually unlocks lycopene. When you saute garlic, it unlocks allicin. There's all of these compounds that cooking actually unlocks. And when you cook, at the most, studies have shown that you're only losing about 30% of the nutrients. So it's not really a huge deal. I think there's benefits to both, and I think my best recommendation for people moving forward would be eat both. You know, there's definitely value in eating fresh vegetables. They're wonderful. They're great. They improve digestion. You improve the water content. There are minerals that stay intact, but there's also inherent benefits of eating cooked vegetables as well. A second suggestion I will say is cooking at a lower temperature or steaming tends to actually preserve a little bit of the minerals and vitamins as well. So just kind of letting you know. And you know, I think to each his own. If this is a barrier for you, if you prefer to cook more because you can cook in what you want, fine, cook more vegetables. It's all about just getting more vegetables.
I would have to agree, and I think a lot of times we get caught up on the makeup of the produce that we're eating, and I think eating any of those versus none is always a better option. And I think, you know, in the busy lives that we live, there's always, you can even go to Walgreens and there's some form of produce that's available in a pinch. So. Oh
yeah, for sure. And that's the other thing too is, you know, if you go to the grocery store and you get those freezer packs of you know, just frozen vegetables that you can just heat up or steam, I mean, why not? Because your alternative is to not eat any at all. So if you're a busy mom, you're a busy dad, and you're saying, well, I'm just not going to eat vegetables because, well, I can't cook them fresh and they're too expensive. If that's your limiting factor, then eating some vegetables, whether it's cooked, frozen, raw, canned, you name it, is better than nothing. I mean, wouldn't you agree?
I would absolutely agree.
All right, well, let's go on to the next one. And this is kind of an interesting one, and this is something that we're recently kind of researching, and we're going to continue to develop this. But the question is it better to eat vegetables in season, or is there some, you know, question there that says, well, does it matter when you eat it? Do you have to eat fruit in the summer or vegetables in the fall? And the truth of the matter is it is better to eat vegetables in season. So I want to talk about this a little bit. Not only do you maximize the ripeness, the freshness of the vegetable, which we've talked about a little bit, but nature's kind of beautifully designed itself for the interaction of human beings. And what we mean by that is in the spring you have all those fresh fruits, fresh leafy vegetables that are coming into season, and that's going to protect you with antioxidants, with minerals that, you know, the sun's going to be hitting, it's going to be harder pretty soon, there's going to be a lot of oxidation from the sun, and the fruits and vegetables are rich in antioxidants at that point, so it protects you. It's so interesting how nature knows to protect you. And that carries from spring to summer. And then when the fall comes around, you have these cruciferous vegetables like broccoli and cauliflower, and those act to really boost the immune system. So, you know, once the fall comes, parents are kind of worrying, okay, kids are going back to school, they're going to be sick, there's going to be all these flu bugs going around. Well, nature has you covered. It basically said, hey, I'm putting these vegetables in season to protect you. So that's kind of cool. And then we transition into winter, and then you're like, well, okay, Michael, well, what grows in the winter? Well, here's what's interesting, is that when you take all those fall vegetables and you ferment them, right, we've talked a little bit about that, but you ferment them, you make sauerkraut, you make kimchi, you jar them up, that promotes more gut health than maybe anything during the entire year, and it probably boosts your immune system more than anything at all. And we've been doing this for thousands of years. And I would say, people knew this. They probably realized that their cultures and their societies were healthier overall. So I think that's really cool how Mother Nature has intelligently designed itself to support human beings in seasons. So it's more than just about ripeness. It's more than just about freshness. It's actually eating how nature designed it for you to move through the year and stay healthy. All right, so this is going to be a little bit of a mosh posh of a slide because there's a lot of little myths that may not deserve its own slide, but I felt like it was kind of important to go over. So the first ones are potatoes are bad. Wrong. Potatoes are not bad. We've heard that. We've said they're too high in carbohydrates. They're going to make me fat. Da-da-da-da. Okay, here's the deal. Potatoes are fantastic. Not only in a lot of clinical studies do they actually help to control insulin, right? So they actually can be positive for blood sugar. They have what's called resistant starch in them, and the resistant starch actually cultivates your gut, your immune system. It boosts you. It's huge. So there are civilizations like the Peruvians in Peru. That's where potatoes originated. When you have researchers go down and study them, their average BMI, their average body fat percentage is like 16. And they have a diet of 70% potatoes. That's extreme, and I'm not telling anyone to go eat 70% potatoes, but it just goes to show you that, this vegetable is not bad. It's actually been supporting human civilization for 10,000 years. So it's really fantastic. So fear not, you can have potatoes. Iceberg lettuce is nutritionally void. How many times have you heard that? I'm not going to eat a salad because iceberg lettuce has nothing good in it. Well, that's actually false too. Here's the deal. Iceberg lettuce has vitamin K, it's got vitamin A, it's filled with tons of water, and it's really satisfying. If you have an iceberg lettuce salad, are there other lettuces that are maybe more nutritionally dense? Yeah, you can do kale and spinach and arugula, but iceberg it's no softie. It actually carries a nutritional punch. So I don't know. I feel like it's a really, really good alternative. If you can't get those high-density salad lettuces, but it's a really, really good one. Carrots, beets, and peas are too sugary. I don't know how many of you out there have been on diets where you go through these phases of diets where it's like, first week's no sugar, second week's limited sugar, but only these vegetables. And then it's almost like carrots, beets, peas, fruits are out of the mix. Look, that's not totally true. It would take you like 3 pounds of carrots just to come close to what a Coke is. It's just not even close to what you think it is. That is a false myth. I think per cup, each of these have between 5 and 8 grams of sugar. That's really low. That's not even anything to worry about. That's totally healthful. Not to mention it's got tons of fiber in it, which slows down the absorption. So sugar, do not worry. Eat them. They're great, fantastic, wonderful. And last, organic vegetables are better. Now, I hesitated putting in this because I feel like it may deserve its own presentation because it's such a hot topic right now. I don't know, Kristen, have you kind of like also seen that in the media? It's like organic, organic, organic. I know you shop at places that are maybe pushing organic a little bit, as do I.
Yes, and I think there's some truth that they are better, but I don't think it has to be 100%. There are that list of the dirty dozen that I try in my family to at least live by the dirty dozen and shop for those and make some exceptions in other cases, especially because the cost of organic versus unorganic definitely far outweighs. So I try to pick and choose.
Yeah, and if you guys have ever heard of the Dirty Dozen, the one thing is if you see it on a website, just know that they renew that list about every year because agricultural practices change. So if you're looking for what the Dirty Dozen is, basically it's the 12 baddest dudes on the ranch. So it's the 12 vegetables that tend to have the most pesticides, the most sprayed. And what you really want to be looking at is leafy vegetables. I mean, there's other contenders, but leafy vegetables, the pesticides tend to sit on the leaves. So if you're worried about the organic nature of it, that's really what you're considering. So if you're going to do some salads and you're saying, okay, what's the best bang for my buck? Leafy vegetables that are organic are actually pretty inexpensive compared to their, comparatively to conventionally grown lettuce. So it's not too bad. So that might be a good one. So there are some differences with organic vegetables. So I will say that is true. And it's not huge, but if you're going to have something that's conventionally grown, it's definitely a positive thing. So with all this information, like, how do we wrap this up? I mean, wrap your brain around these concepts with vegetables. You know you need to eat more. We know they're good for us. We live longer when we eat them. So it's like, so what? What do I do next? Well, first of all, eat what you like the most. You're going to hear people like, I don't know, Dr. Oz or, health specialists on Oprah or the latest blog, and they're going to say, these 5 power vegetables are the best. And so then you think in your mind, well, man, these must be the healthiest, so I'm going to try and eat these. And then you fail because you realize you don't even like those vegetables. So if you're a person who likes, I don't know, carrots, or you like the sweeter vegetables, if you like beets, peas, and you say, well, those aren't the healthiest vegetables, well, my rebuttal is, okay, and eat those vegetables. They're great. Vegetables are vegetables. They're wonderful. So if it's about getting more, just eat what you like. And number 2, buy more, eat more. So if you don't have them in your house, you can't eat them. Your family can't enjoy them either. And if you say to yourself, well, I don't want to buy them because, they're just going to sit there, well, the onus is on you. You should still have them there. Keep them at about eye level. Keep them on the countertop. Keep them fresh so you can look at them and remind yourself, hey, I have them. I should eat them. Add in small additive veggies is point 3. And what I mean by that is, sometimes you don't want to go the whole way and eat asparagus or eat broccoli. But what about chopping up some onions? What about chopping up some garlic? Add those small vegetables that go into your dishes, like your pasta. It's easy to add garlic and onions. Those are vegetables, and they're incredibly healthy. In fact, onions, garlic, and leeks are probably the 3 most important vegetables for gut health. So to boost your immune system, those 3 are super vegetables. So if it's not about, 1/3 your plate vegetable, then just start chopping up things you like that adds flavor to your dishes, and use that for a start. And last but not least, get creative. Like, like I do shakes in the morning. So I'll put in some, kale and some spinach and blend some fruit in there, because how else am I going to get vegetables in the morning? And I don't always have time to cook an omelet or eat fresh veggies. So what I'll do is I'll just throw it in my shake and move on. So any way that gets you to eat vegetables, there's been even popular authors that have come out. They write entire books on how to hide vegetables in brownies for your kids. I mean, this stuff's like really, really creative. So there's really a lot that you can do. And this is something kind of new to our webinar, but I wanted to include it today. So it's a In the News special. And I want to cover current topics. And I'm going to pick one every time we do a webinar. And so this literally just came out. It's hot off the press. It's like a month old. And what they did is they looked at about 80,000 unique individuals and then did a populational study of 800,000 people. So this was really a giant study, which actually is great because it shows really, really good solid evidence. And what they did was they said, okay, let's look at all these people who eat vegetables and let's see if it actually helps people live longer. And what they found out that it does. And the unique thing about this study is specifically cardiovascular disease. That was the big one. We've been hearing a lot about cancer prevention in vegetables. The link wasn't as strong, and maybe there will be on the next study, in the next round, but this specific study, almost 1 million people, cardiovascular disease, by a large part, was prevented with people who eat 5 servings of vegetables. Now, more than 5, it didn't do much. There was a little bit of a diminishing return there, but for every serving you increased, it decreased your risk of cardiovascular disease. So if you start at 1, your risk of cardiovascular disease, if you increase to 2, is less. So it's really, really cool. So vegetables have sort of this additive effect over portion sizes. So if you can hit 5, you're in a really elite group, and these people tend to live pretty long, healthy lives. So I want to thank you guys for joining our webinar. We want to open up the floor to some questions if we have any. I'm not sure if we do.
I do have 2 actually, but I want to remind everyone how to submit those. Just type those into the control panel under the question section. You may have to expand that by hitting the little triangle next to the questions bar. But go ahead and submit those questions now. But I want to start off with, you mentioned fermenting vegetables. Can you talk a little bit more about like what that means quickly, like how to do that? And
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to do it. You know, basically in ancient civilizations, it was really pretty easy. And how they did it is they took fresh vegetables, they took like a liquid medium, water, they took like a vinegar mixture, they put salt in it, they bottled it up, they capped it, and then it fermented. And basically what ends up happening is these bacteria, they feed on the sugars that are contained within fruits and vegetables. And it produces positive bacteria. So it actually turns even what can be considered negative bacteria into positive bacteria. So you hear me talking about bacteria, like, well, so what? Why is that a big deal? Well, since ninth grade biology class, all we've ever heard our whole lives is we are a body of cells. We're just this big walking cellular machine. Well, actually, we're a big bacteria machine, because in the human body, bacteria outnumber cells 10 to 1. So we're much more bacteria than we are cells. And when you colonize your bacteria correctly, all these messengers in your body start communicating. Your immunity goes through the roof. Cardiovascular disease comes down. Your brain health goes up. Just about risk of every known metabolic disease goes down. So it's a really big deal. And, you know, fermenting vegetables has been done for thousands of years. It's supported thousands of cultures through drought, through times of cold. It's a really, really great thing. You know, you can go on the internet and look up the most basic fermenting, you know, recipes, and there's all kinds of ways to do it. Cabbage is a great one to start with, like cabbage, carrots, and onions. You know, that's a really kind of an easy one. And you can buy them at the store too. They have, you know, mixes like kimchi is a really popular, I believe, Korean dish. So.
Okay. All right, thanks. The other one was about drinking your vegetables.
Drinking your vegetables, okay.
You mentioned you do smoothies with vegetables, so no concerns, any differences with drinking versus cooking? I mean,
no, and in fact, I'll put a little product on Spotlight. I have the NutriBullet, and I've tried a lot, and I do believe the NutriBullet's the one. I mean, I don't know that I'll ever trade off. There's a couple people who work here who kind of agree with me on that. But I throw like a handful of spinach and Brussels sprouts. And those of you that are listening, you're like, oh, Brussels sprouts, you throw that in your smoothie. It's delicious. It's unbelievable. It's like tasteless. So I mixed in some frozen berries, and basically that's it. I mean, it's water, frozen berries, and some greens. And I have basically tripled my produce overnight doing that, because I used to either not eat breakfast. I know that's like, you know, nutrition guy, like you shouldn't do that, but I used to either not eat breakfast or I would just make something really, really quick that wasn't optimal. So this is a way for me to eat fruits and vegetables in the morning. If you guys are interested in NutriBullet, they actually come with these recipes that are phenomenal. I have a 2-year-old son. He asks for the NutriBullet shakes in the morning. Like, this is how good they are. They're incredible. If you mix them with fruit, they're fantastic. He thinks they're like smoothies from, you know, Smoothie King. He thinks they're like the greatest thing in the world. So they're really, really good. Don't let the vegetables scare you off. They're really tame. You can't even taste them.
Okay, great. I do have a question going back to the Dirty Dozen. So the Dirty Dozen is great for fruit and vegetables, but what about dairy and meat?
There's not a Dirty Dozen for dairy and meat. There's really not. We're actually going to, on a webinar coming up fairly soon, we're going to talk about meat and dairy and that sort of thing. I can't tell you there's certain meat that are dirtier than others, but what I will say is this. Typically in American consumerism and the way that like kind of our farm system works, your biggest risk tend to be beef. Why? Because it's the most mass produced. So anything that's produced that high of quantities, you know, tampering and taking shortcuts is most likely. Wild fish are really great, right? Because there really hasn't been much tampering. They're not farmed, they're not tampered with. They're really pretty clean source. Chicken also tends to be fairly clean source, but as far as a Dirty Dozen, that just I haven't seen it at least exist for dairy or meat. So.
Okay, great. That's it for questions right now.
Okay.
And we're about 2 minutes after, maybe about 3 minutes after the end, so we'll probably wrap up today. But we will have this again, this available for playback on YouTube. You can see the link on the slide there. But we do hope to see you next week. So please tune in again.
Thank you, everyone, for coming out. You have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.